Hey, folks, and welcome back. We definitely like to thank our guests, Ms. Eden James and Mr. Bruce Johnson, for joining us in the last segment. Well, now that we got that out the way, it's time to talk some football. We are continuing with our discussion on the AFC NFC Championship games. But before we do that, if you've been following the NFL playoffs this season, you'll know that there have been some controversial calls in this year's playoffs. The first one being in the wild card round. What you looking at?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, man.
The Dallas-Detroit game. I'm going to try to make it through this, y'all. My Lions, the phantom call, the phantom pass interference call, where the flag was actually thrown and picked up, subsequently costing the Lions a drive and maybe even the game, okay? And, of course, the second call was the very following week when the Green Bay Packers benefited from a non-catch by Dez Bryant. So, Richard Walker.
Yes, sir.
Let's first start with the wild card round.
Okay.
The Detroit and Dallas game.
The Detroit and Dallas game where my Dallas Cowboys were triumphant over your Detroit Lions. Is that the one that you referred to?
That's the one.
Not that I would bring it up intentionally to keep pouring salt in your wound. I'm not that kind of guy.
Well, you know your boys are getting fitted for their wild card championship rings. Oh wait, I forgot they don't get rings for that. So
yeah,
anyway,
well, you guys wouldn't know anything about that in Detroit anyway.
No.
Remember when? Remember when?
Oh boy, here we go.
Yes.
Here
Once
we go.
again, bringing up old rings. He asked you about the game, the wild card game. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's make sure your 2012 division championship T-shirt is clean. But in the meanwhile, my motto is, and this is exactly what I communicated to you and to everyone else. In fact, I wrote an article about it. If you go to btpsportstalk.com, I wrote an article that specifically said the NFL does not have good officiating. We know this already. Why are we acting brand new? Why are we acting surprised when an NFL official screws up a call? The whole catch completion process came from a bad officiating call. They went and changed the rules. Instead of changing the way that they train their officials, they went and changed the rules to make sure that they're politically correct. That's not how it should be done. That's the problem with the NFL officiating. It needs to be addressed. It's inconsistent. Whether it's against Detroit or Dallas or Green Bay, there have been controversial calls, and there will continue to be controversial calls until they address the officiating process, because there's too much room for human error.
Right.
And then you have the technology to not only replay from multiple camera angles, top line, sideline view, you got the zip line cam. You have the technology. The problem is the NFL is so arrogant in the fact that they don't want to be corrected. They haven't addressed the policy that you can't, for example, challenge flags. Right. Why? If I see what I don't perceive to be a pass interference call as a coach, I should be able to throw a red flag and say, hey, that's not pass interference.
Right.
That call should be reviewed. And for objectivity purposes, why don't you have an official that's not there on the field, that's remote, watching the game, and can override the game day official?
Well,
the technology's there.
Right. They do have that. Now, folks, joining us here in this segment, she kind of introduced herself already, but that's just what she does. And that's why around here we call her the captain, the Gransberry, Miss Natasha Gransberry. So, Captain, talk to me about that. About that call.
Sitting between the two of you is actually funny, since it's Detroit and Cowboys fans. So that's
sitting between playoff teams is kind of.
Really.
We
Texas
fans,
you just can't get enough. I know you always want a Texans fan near you. I know I'm near you. It's okay. But let's move on to what's at hand. I'm just going to use a small comparison to just general the legal world, right?
It goes the attorney.
Because that'll be the attorney and me coming out, of course. But it stands true. If you think about it, every law is put in place, whether on a city level, state level, or federal, right? Sometimes the laws are good, sometimes they're bad. The lawmakers have to go back, they have to make adjustments, or people have to petition to have things change. Nothing will ever be perfect. We don't stop making laws. We keep improving on some and we remove some. That's what we do. So I understand your comment about bad officiating. However, I have a problem with saying until they fix the officiating. It will be an evolving process. Things will continue to evolve. Now, the only thing that makes this particular call in the Green Bay game different is that we already saw it happen before, and so maybe they should have looked at it again. But I think the difficult part is when you start talking about saying you want to appeal flags. I agree to a certain extent. I just don't want it to turn into an 8-hour event hold on. Where when are we going? How many flags will you be allowed to appeal, for one, right? Mm-hmm. And then two, how many times are you going to keep saying something happened over there that you missed? So that's going to take a while. I don't think that it will never happen. We didn't have replay. So, I mean, you have to allow it to evolve. But if you stick to the week of your game, mm-hmm. the only thing that's hilarious about the situation is there was enough time left that you still can make the argument that it's not necessarily on the call that you lost the game. Mm-hmm. And so you have to suck that up and go back to the drawing board. Now, the only thing I think that was a little gangster or rude was the Cowboys fans slaughtered the Detroit fans as if the only thing that stops the play from being bad and not made is that they had time to win. Well, I'll give you that same argument in your game. It was over 4 minutes left in the game. It was not below the 2-minute mark. It wasn't as if Green Bay could run the clock down and just win. You needed to make a stop and you needed to score. Now, if your special teams couldn't figure out some trick play that U of H could figure out and how to come back and win a game, don't blame that on officiating. Blame that on coaches. I guess that's why some leaving and some still don't have contracts. I don't know. But I don't want to make it all that you need to be able to appeal and complain about everything. Play the game, catch the ball, be in the lead at the end, and you don't have to worry about a bad play. You just don't.
Can you leave me a little bit of his lunch you just ate?
I'm just saying.
Just leave me a bite or two.
I'm just saying.
I'm a little hungry too, you know?
I don't know how many people paid attention, but right when the Cowboys scored in the first half of the Green Bay and Cowboys game, there was a late hit on Tony Romo.
In quotes?
Because I only say that because they didn't throw the flag, okay? But given respect, there was a late hit. However, you scored. So at some point, how many times do you want to complain? It's like, you got the touchdown. So the point of the flag is to correct a wrong so you can proceed with the game.
Exactly.
Well, you scored. So that's why I'm saying don't get so caught up in saying bad officiating. They made a rule. And if that's the rule, you got to live and die by it. Right. And you just died a week later.
Now, here's the thing about that, though. You're on my Facebook, so you saw all my comments following that game. I was in the stadium on the way home. You know, Rich and I were at the game.
Correct.
So I never said, "Oh, that call cost us the game." It was 8 minutes left in the game when that flag was picked up on us. Now, momentum. As football players, we know about momentum. It's a momentum shift. But I would never say, "Well, we were up 17-0." We were up 17-7 at the half. That flag had nothing to do with our offensive line breaking down and, like you said, getting Matt Stafford sacked. That call had nothing to do with a 10-yard punt that our punter let go. That call had nothing to do with us getting a second chance with 2.5 minutes and 2 timeouts left and still not being able to score. Now, it was a momentum shift, but it wasn't the cause of the game. Same there. You guys had 4 minutes left, and that, if I remember right, but that was 4th down. So that hurt. That non-catch was 4th down. And as we all know, Jolivet, that call is ironically called the Calvin Johnson rule. It was 2010. The Lions were playing the Chicago Bears. Calvin Johnson did what he does, went up and made a big boy catch over some little DB, and he fell down. And then when he rolled up, he set the ball down on the ground to get up, and it popped out of his hand. No catch. Now, that cost us a game because that was within 2 minutes. Jolivet, do you remember that game?
I remember that game.
What was your reaction to it?
I thought it was a catch in that game because it was a catch because he had total control of the ball. Now, of course, these referees, they go through a whole, I don't care how long it is, they train for, 12, 17 years, some long amount of time, but there's going to always be human error unless you're Ed Hockley in this league. So, I mean, let's be honest. Ed Hockley is about the best. He's going to explain the rules. He's going to break it down. Well, due to a technicality and the flaw in the rule book, and
Ed Hockley looked like he could still play.
Yeah, shoot, he looked like he beat up.
Oh man,
dude's swole. But there's always going to be some human error in football, no matter what, because it's always going to be controlled by somebody else. They're going to see something. And because you can throw a flag on every single play. There's going to be holding every single play in the trenches. There's going to be clipping something. Something can always be called.
Absolutely.
So the thing is, and the thing what you said about momentum, I don't really believe in momentum because I just believe in staying focused and getting the job accomplished. I really don't. I don't care what the opposition is doing. I don't care what they're saying. I don't care. Okay, well, you set me 15 yards back. Okay, fool, that's fine. We just have more room to work in the red zone now because now we have time for our routes to develop. And that's the way I look at things. You have to take. It's not what you face. It's the mindset you face it with. That's all I'm saying.
There we go.
But come on.
And it's a different side of the ball too. If you think about it, just in the sense that Dez misses the catch, it's 4th down. Now defense has to come out.
And they didn't stop them.
But they're deep too.
They could've stopped
They're deep in that area. So they have to go all the way back the other way. You have a chance to shut them down. And so if you're saying that every time offense doesn't score, defense is going to come on the field with a bad momentum, or every time defense lets a touchdown happen, offense is going to come back out down, then what's the point of playing the game? You're supposed to be ready. I mean, I know it could be momentum for a second, but it's time. It's professionals.
It's like one of the catchphrases that I'll never forget as a player, and coach used to drill in our head. I won't repeat the word, but blank will happen. Don't let blank beat you.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Like I said, we had every opportunity to come back and win that game, but they didn't get it done. Now, let's go back. Now, I know it was replacement refs, but speaking of Green Bay, and I already know what I'm about to say.
NFL history.
Green Bay and Seattle. We were on the road coming back from Tennessee.
Tennessee. Oh, my goodness.
That's another show.
That's a whole nother show. That's a series on its own. Yeah.
We were on the road from Tennessee, so we're listening to the game on Slacker Radio. So we didn't see it. And once we get home, we're like, we watched the clip, and we're like, one referee says touchdown, and the other referee is blowing it dead as though it was an interception.
And it goes back to what he said, human error. Yeah,
human error.
But that was the last play. Yeah, that was the last play.
That literally cost us
literally the last play of the game.
They said, you know what, screw this. We're going to go it on, and we're going to get the referees paid. We're going to do their new deal and get them back.
All football fans were glad that happened.
Yeah.
We were because that preseason, those replacement officials were horrible. They were god awful. Literally, no exaggeration. One of the guys, and nothing against him, but one of the guys that officiates our minor league games, you go from officiating minor league football to an NFL game. That's
totally different.
That's completely not properly
different.
Prepared. So, because that's
like,
the
on
unfair
a whim,
assessment.
Though.
That's the unfair
That's what I'm
assessment.
saying.
But you said horrible. So I'm going to use your word.
But that's real. Just because it wasn't their fault don't mean it wasn't bad.
No, that's the NFL was horrible for using them.
They had to use some. What, are they going to not play?
Well, then which way you want it? So you had them out there, and now you're just going to bully them as horrible. And that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a give and take. So if the NFL allowed that to happen, then they're officiating at the best of their abilities.
That don't mean I can't say it was bad. Just again.
You could say it was bad. You said they were horrible, and I'm just playing on the definition of horrible, which would imply that they knew what to do and then did a bad job.
Legal explanation.
The rules are the same in minor league football.
Which way you want it then?
The rules are the same in minor league football.
So they didn't pick the best supplemental refs?
They picked who they could. They picked local guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got guys from Craigslist.
So the NFL didn't pick the best guys because those guys came with the talent they had. So that's why I say that.
That don't mean it wasn't bad.
Doesn't matter. You didn't say bad. You said horrible.
Really? Bad.
You trying to argue with a lawyer?
You trying to argue with an attorney?
I'm just saying. I was glad it happened too. I thought it was the most exciting thing that could happen.
It was the most thing.
So,
the
but
best thing
at
that
the
could
same
happen.
time, I just feel like if you put a rookie in a position and ask them to be seasoned, and I'm not even just speaking in sports, just general, and if they do a bad job, then they're horrible. But maybe if you 5 years in, you horrible. But at that point, they just threw people out there and said, just officiate these games and just do the best you can.
Yeah, and
they never expected a play like that.
Right.
And they would have went on longer had that not happened. They probably wouldn't have settled the contract.
Probably.
Oh, of course they would.
Because that was week 1. Wasn't it? Wasn't it the
Yep,
first game?
sure was. That was the first Monday night game.
Yeah, so that was
literally
the only week that they
impacted.
And it wound up costing
It cost Green Bay a game in the standings.
Yeah, it cost Green Bay a home playoff game, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And they wind up getting beat.
Yep.
But, yeah. Lord, here we go. So, Jolivet.
Yes.
You remember that call?
I remember that call.
What did you think about it?
I thought it was the most devastating call in football, period. But with the talent that they had and the referee crew that they had, that's what they saw. They couldn't agree to it, so they just had to, hey, look, you know what, we have to really kind of figure this out, because you don't expect those guys to know the rule book forwards and backwards like regular NFL referees know it, because they go through a rigorous training program, and they even go through all the implications of the rule changes and things in the off season. So with what they knew from, refereeing high school football or college football, which that is totally different, refereeing college football, they did the best of their abilities in order to keep the game afloat, because the NFL, they knew this. Hey, look, we don't have any referees, we're going to lose billions of dollars.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's what they knew. So, look, we're just going to get these guys out here. We're going to push them out there. I know we usually pay them like $17,000, $18,000 a game to referee, but, here, you get something, but here, just
NFL referees, that's like a hobby. Most of those guys are like
lawyers
and doctors. That's just something they do.
Well, they make better than $170,000 a year just refereeing 16 games.
None of those guys live off of that money.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
But let's wrap up with talking about the Pro Football Writers of America awards that were given out. Obviously, the AP awards are the. You just can't wait, can you?
Oh my
y'all just can't see the way she over here is shimmying. So, Aaron Rodgers won the Pro Football Writers of America MVP, and he had a ridiculous season. Completed 66% of his passes, threw for 4,381 yards, 38 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 0 interceptions at home. This guy has not thrown an interception at home in 2 seasons. Are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. 112.2 was his passer rating. He was
off
second.
the charts.
He was second. Do you know who had the top passer rating in NFL this season?
Yeah, tell me who. Tell me who had the top passer rating.
Antonio Romo. He did. Can't hate.
Tony Romo's always a good fantasy quarterback.
But you know what? The Cowboys not winning that playoff game. This is the one year where you can't put nothing on Tony Romo. For once, it wasn't his fault. I know that hurts, Cap. But for once, it wasn't his fault. Speaking of the Cowboys, the offensive player of the year went to DeMarco Murray. Well deserved it. He 392 carries, 845 yards, which is 4.7 yards a carry, 13 touchdowns. Not bad. Now, defensive player of the year. Who won that?
I don't know who.
That's okay. I didn't even disrespect him when you introduced.
How am I being disrespectful? I'm trying to figure out who won it.
Gransberry.
I don't
That's
have
a
a clue.
disrespectful statement, because you know exactly who won it.
Gransberry. Tell me who won the Pro Football Writers of Association Defensive Player of the Year.
J.J. Watt.
Justin James Watt. Okay.
Pizza boy.
This guy had an unbelievable season.
No doubt about that.
78 tackles, 20 and a half sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble return, 4 touchdowns. As a matter of fact, the intro that you guys saw before this game, when you see Captain jumping up and down and Rich and we were at that game. That was against. We covered that game. It was the Buffalo game. We were in the middle of shooting the interview. As a matter of fact, I was running the camera on that. Rich was interviewing Natasha, and we just heard the crowd just go ballistic. And we turn around and we see JJ
strutting
down the field, and that's why she was going bananas in the intro that you guys see.
It was very well deserved.
It was. You know what? And I tell you what, he led the league in tackles for loss, fumble recoveries, and quarterback hits, and he even had 3 receiving touchdowns. Now we don't have time left in this segment to get off into the MVP conversation, but we all know that the MVP, let's keep it real, it shouldn't be, but it is. It's an offensive stat-driven award.
It's a success-driven award. You have to win.
Right. Typically,
you have to win.
Typically, it's a.
There's no value in
being
mediocre.
Typically, it's a quarterback that's going to win the MVP.
But the definition doesn't mention that.
Now, I'm gonna tell you, like I told the rest of the guys, the only thing, in my opinion, that kept JJ out of the MVP discussion is the Texans didn't make the playoffs. They're not going to give the MVP to, because they're going to say, okay, so you're the MVP of a team that didn't even make the playoffs. Whoop-de-doo. Now, that's not me talking. That's just the way it is. Now, had the Texans made the playoffs and made some noise in the playoffs, he would have been a legitimate candidate. he would have been a legitimate candidate. But still, that is a ridiculous stats for J.J. Watt. So, folks, that'll do it for this segment, and we got to take a break right now. So, for Damian Jolivet, the captain, Big Rich, Mitchell Brock, we'll be right back.